In only 30 days, the Backwards House webcomic raised over $60,000 on Kickstarter. This Mascot horror graphic novel was created by Skynix Art, a popular creator known for his art challenge videos on YouTube. You may have seen me appear in some of his videos. Today, I will be sitting down with Skynix to discuss this new genre of storytelling to figure out how his first Kickstarter campaign was such a massive success.
I am Skynix Art. I'm an art YouTuber and comic artist. After doing YouTube for so long, I've got a knack for what will blow up and what won't blow up. And out of every story I've ever wrote, the Backwards House, in my opinion, was the one that was the easiest to kind of market. Mainly because it's a mascot horror, which is kind of untouched in the comic industry, but it's an insanely sought out genre right now. Like, just saying the words mascot horror is enough to sell like 50% of people on a project. They don't need to know any more than that to like be interested in it.
According to TV Tropes, mascot horror is a subgenre of horror popularized by indie horror games in the mid-2010s. The main terror is a recognizable character or group of characters who could easily be the mascots of a children's media franchise. Think back to shows like Teletubbies, Thomas the Tank Engine, and the Care Bears.
It's a relatively new genre. From all the research I've done of it, it kind of started when Five Nights at Freddy's came out, because that game kind of just had a chokehold on the internet. The premise of mascot horror is usually there is this cute childlike mascots at the forefront of this game that makes it look very nice and kid-friendly, and the more you get into it, the more these mascots kind of become corrupted and twisted, and they become horrifying. And the big thing about mascot horror is it's very marketable, because you have these colorful mascots at the forefronts of all these games and projects. You can easily make merch of them, you can easily market them. Kids absolutely love mascot horrors. I think it's because it's a more kind of tame version of horror that they can kind of get into.
The rise of mascot horror is kind of similar to creepypasta in the early 2010s and slasher films in the 1980s. Do you remember when kids were obsessed with Slender Man? Some were a little too obsessed. Some common themes in mascot horror games include a recognizable child-friendly mascot that often exists in-universe, a cartoony art style that often clashes with the horrific events that will inevitably take place, themes including childhood and humans are the real monsters, and hidden lore that can only be uncovered through environmental storytelling and theory crafting.
My biggest gripe with mascot horror games, with ARGs, I hate ARGs, stuff like the Walton Files, stuff like the Mandela Catalog. I love stories, I love writing, and mascot horrors always seem like these such awesome concepts, but the way they're presented in ARGs and sometimes video games as well, the story is so separated and random, and it's almost like you need to watch a game theory video just to even understand what's going on, which I don't like that kind of storytelling. I really like the stories that you can kind of follow along. There's a journey to follow, there's a main character to follow. Sometimes in games there isn't even a main character, there's just the player character, which doesn't even have like a story. I think Poppy Playtime kind of does it good, but I really like the avenue of actually telling a story with goals and like an ending and stuff, and not a lot of mascot horrors do that, but a comic, which is inherently a storytelling medium, is a really fun way of doing that. And I haven't really seen that kind of explored too much within the mascot horror genre, so I really wanted to explore it.
So tell us more about your story, The Backwards House.
The Backwards House is a mascot horror webcomic I've been developing. The story revolves around our protagonist, Katie, who finds themselves stuck in this cartoon world after watching a cursed VHS tape that traps their soul inside of it. Their goal is to escape this cursed VHS tape. There's two main inspirations for the look. One of them is the Smiling Critters from Poppy Playtime, which was this like sub thing of the Poppy Playtime game where it was kind of like a haunted TV show with cute anthropomorphic mascot characters. The oldest version of Care Bears was a big inspiration for how I started drawing these characters and everything. Everyone kind of looks like a plushie, a teddy bear essentially. For this story, I think the biggest inspirations would probably be Promised Neverland, the anime, as one of them, which is an anime about these orphans in this orphanage, and their whole goal is to escape while the mother is the antagonist and she kind of tries to thwart their efforts. Another inspiration for the story would be The Amazing Digital Circus, which whole concept is characters get trapped in this digital world and they forget their name and everything. Maybe the video game Omori, it looks like this very kid-friendly, fun, creative world, but then the more you play the game, the darker and darker it gets, and the story kind of gets very, very tragic tragic at some point. So that's kind of what's going to happen in the Backwards House as well. It looks nice and fun on the surface, but the more you read it, the more dark themes are going to come up.
You mentioned that most Mascot horror stories are video games. Was there ever a plan to make the Backwards House a video game instead of a comic book?
So the original time I came up with this concept, it was going to be a video game. The title for the Backwards House originated from the concept of the game. So one of the big mechanics I was going to have in the video game version was there was going to be two houses, a real like world house, which is the abandoned house, and then the digital TV world house, which is the Backwards House. And the mechanic would be that whenever you go into the Backwards House, it is quite literally a flipped version of the abandoned house. So the mechanic would revolve around exploring the abandoned house, learning the layout of everything, and then going into the Backwards House and using your knowledge of the layout to like find secrets and everything. That premise doesn't really have any concept anymore in the comic, but I like the name so much, so I kept it.
You also mentioned how protagonist characters in most Mascot horror games lack a personality since they are stand-ins for the player. How did you decide on who would be your story's main character?
Katie, the main character. Their whole thing is in this unfortunate situation, they become very analytical and very strategic. I'm so sick of main characters in horror movies that are just like, oh, I'm so scared all the time. Oh, I don't know what to do. Like, I get so sick of that so quickly. So I wanted my main character to kind of be more of a voice of reason in these scenarios, which I don't know. We'll see if people like it.
How about for your Mascot characters, since they are the main selling point of your story?
So the essential idea was I want characters that are super simple and easy to draw because it's a comic and I have to draw them a million times. I wanted them to be cute. I wanted them to be mascots. I wanted them to be anthropomorphic animals. And I wanted them to be marketable in a sense that they're easily recognizable, even if they're not complicated. So I kind of did that by making all of them animals with a main color and either a trinket or some kind of artifact of clothing. Most of their personalities kind of revolve around the animals they're based off of. Curious cat is very curious. An elephant never forgets. Monkeys are mischievous and funny. Mouses are quiet. Mules are stubborn. Foxes are deceptive. Dogs are playful. There's the mother character, which is kind of a unique character because she's meant to be the kind of horrifying antagonist that doesn't kind of fit the vibe of everything. So she's just straight up a full-on human.
Something else I'd love to know more about is your Kickstarter campaign. For those of you that don't know, Kickstarter is a crowdfunding platform that helps bring creative projects to life. While this all sounds good in theory, many campaigns fail to get funded. So tell me, why Kickstarter?
I've always wanted to make a comic that releases consistently, like releases chapters every 2 weeks or something. And that I realized is kind of impossible to do by oneself simply because of the sheer amount of work it takes to make a comic. Like the most people can do is release a couple pages a week if they work by themselves, which isn't even a full chapter. And I realized the only way to do that was with a team. And the only way to have a team of artists consistently work for me is to pay them, and the only way to pay them is to get funds to pay them, and a good way of getting funds is through Kickstarter, because I heard lots of comics go on Kickstarter. So I started researching Kickstarter. I went to like online seminar about how to do good Kickstarters. I reached out to a couple artists I know who've run successful Kickstarters, and all the advice I got was basically don't do one. Comic Kickstarters don't work unless you have a pre-existing audience. If you actually go into Kickstarter and look at the successful comic Kickstarters, most of them are finished comics. Like they're not funding to create the comic or anything. They're finished comics, they have an audience, and all the Kickstarter is doing is selling the comic book, the finished comic book. So there was not a lot of examples of comics that were funding money to make the comic. Simply because if the comic is funding to actually make it, it doesn't have an audience yet. And because it doesn't have an audience, there's no one who is willing to back the comic. I knew the only way to make a successful comic Kickstarter for this new comic was to essentially build an audience as quickly as humanly possible within a month, because that's how long we had for a Kickstarter. So I could actually get people who like the comic and donate to it. So in order to do that, I had a couple schemes. One, we needed to make at least 2 chapters. I felt like that was enough to kind of sell people on a story. It was essentially like a pilot episode. And just in case the comic wasn't like enough, like they didn't go viral enough, we also wanted to make a comic dub of the first chapter with professional voice acting and editing and everything, so we could kind of sell that as a video. And since obviously I'm a YouTuber, I can market market a video a lot easier than I can market a webcomic. And then the last thing we made, in case we needed even more marketing, was an animation, this little ARG horror thing that kind of acted as a intro to the Backwards House. That kind of acted as a little indie animation, and indie animation right now does very well on YouTube. People are really craving that kind of thing.
Can you walk us through how you set up your campaign goals on Kickstarter?
If you actually look at the Kickstarter and read what the original goal was, it says 1,000 New Zealand dollars, which is roughly 700 USD, which is not a lot. With that, we couldn't really actually do anything. The real goal, the goal I wanted to reach, funding for volume 1, which would have been about 25,000 New Zealand dollars, 10,000, 14,000 USD. That was the real goal. The reason I didn't set that as the Kickstarter goal was, number one, if you don't reach your goal on Kickstarter, you don't get the money. So the worst case scenario that I didn't want to happen was I get to like 13,000 USD, but it's not enough to get like the full volume, and I just don't get any money after it ends. That would have been so sad. I can see why people don't like doing Kickstarters that fail. So setting the goal really low made sure that no matter what happened, you would get a payout from Kickstarter. You could actually do something. Another reason was a little bit of a marketing scheme. So if you go on Kickstarter, they actually promote Kickstarter projects that are doing well in their eyes. And there's always this little thing at the bottom of a little Kickstarter thumbnail which says something like, this project is 100% funded. This project is 10% funded. This project is 10,000% funded. And whenever I was looking around Kickstarter, my eyes were always drawn to those things that said, this project is 10,000% funded. This project is 7,000% funded. One of my little marketing strategies was like, okay, I want my project to be 10,000% funded. But the only way to realistically do that would be to set a very low goal, hit that goal, exceed that goal, and then that's when Kickstarter starts saying the project is like 1,000,000,000% funded. And it just makes it look much more appealing to people clicking on it, because they'll see this project and they'll immediately think, oh, this has to be a good project because it's already 10,000% funded, which just, you know, kind of incentivizes people to check it out more. It's also like if the project needs a lot of money and you're like donating and you don't know if it's going to reach its goal. If it doesn't reach its goal, you're not going to get anything. Like you might not even get the reward you pay for. So seeing a project that's already funded and donating to it, you know for a fact you're going to get the reward you paid for.
Was it the same for the stretch goals?
So the stretch goals were also kind of a marketing scheme. So I really wanted to hit the first goal as soon as possible. And I wanted that first goal to kind of spiral to hitting more goals. So the very first goal was to release the comic dub. We expected the comic dub to be the thing that draws in the most people. My friends alone probably would have helped me hit that goal by donating. So we hit that instantly within like 2 hours or something, or in the first day, and then we released the comic dub. Next, after people see the comic dub, they're like, oh, this story's so cool, I want to see more. And if they go to the Kickstarter, they can see the next goal is to release the next chapter instantly. And then everything after that was just very basic goals, like we'll make chapter 3, we'll make chapter 4, we'll make chapter 5, all the way till we'll make all of the first volume. And then we had a couple more stretch goals after that, for fuck's sake, essentially just for like in case people wanted to really see this project spiral out of control. So the ones we've hit is now we've got comic dubs. We're going to make comic dubs for all the rest of the chapters, which is really cool because people really like the first comic dub, and it kind of just going to act as marketing for the rest of the comic. Like whenever we make a chapter or 2 chapters, we're going to release a comic dub. And the next stretch goal we hit is we're going to make our own original song. We do have some very good singers on the crew in the voice cast for this comic, and they know some composers, so we're already reaching out to them, starting production on it. Lots of Mascot horrors these days have just original songs or fan-made songs on YouTube, and they do very well. That's another little like marketing scheme.
Well, taking a look at your Kickstarter, it looks like you hit every goal except the last one that you set, which is honestly kind of crazy. Do you have any advice for anybody listening who is thinking about starting their own Kickstarter campaign?
A Kickstarter campaign for a comic will not work. It will not get funded unless you have a pre-existing audience. For my case, it was kind of an exception for 2 reasons. One, because I had a massive fucking marketing scheme. I had a comic done, I had a full animation, I had 2 chapters of the comic done and ready to be posted. And I also had 200,000 plus subscribers to kind of back me up. If you don't have that, you need to build an audience for your comic before you make the Kickstarter. You can't make the Kickstarter first, because if no one's heard of your comic before or no one's read your comic before, or no one's even heard of you before, then they just won't trust giving any money to this will reap them any benefits. Like, they won't want to read the comic. They don't know if you'll even follow through on it. I see some Kickstarters for comics that don't even show like what the final pages are gonna look like, and at that point it's like no one's gonna donate because they just don't know if the comic's gonna be good or not. Don't expect people to give you hope. They're only gonna donate if they know the comic is gonna be good. The best way to do that is to already have the comic exist and out, and then after they read it they'll be like, okay, the comic is good, now I'll donate.
I want to take this moment to thank Skynix Art for coming on and telling us more about his Kickstarter campaign. If you have any more questions, leave them down in the comment section below.
Everyone go subscribe to my YouTube channel, Skynix Art. I also post my stuff on Instagram. Go read the comic. It's on GlobalComix, the backwards house on GlobalComix. It's like #1 trending right now, GlobalComix, so you'll find it. I am not thankful for you guys watching. Everyone unsubscribe from Monitor and subscribe to me right now.